Okay, good evening, everybody. I was just sitting there silently praying that I wouldn't be the name pulled, but I better use my time wisely. This story of mine takes place in New York, too. I remember the Cheetah, and back in those days, you could get into a nightclub at 18. So as soon as I graduated from high school, I went to the Cheetah, and had a very good time. But this story takes place when I was a little bit older. I was going to live in New York, and I was going to librarian school. And so it's just like, you know how Stevie Wonder has a record where this bumpkin gets off the bus, and somebody says, just carry this package across the street for me. And as soon as he carries it across the street for him, he gets arrested. So I was that type of bumpkin. Everybody I met, they always said, you're not from New York, are you? It's like, how do you know? So when I finally got it together and people stopped asking me, am I from New York, I thought I had made it. Well, anyway, I got a job. I was going to library school, but I always wanted to write and do things with writing. And I got a job at this place called Third Press as an editor. And there were some guys there and some girls, and every Friday they would go out drinking. And I was like the youngest one in the group. And we would go over somebody's house sometime, and everybody would go in the kitchen one by one and do something and come out feeling all fired up. And one time they went into the kitchen, and everybody did it at the same time, and they came back, and they were bleeding big, lumpy clots of blood from their nose because the cocaine they were snorting had been cut with glass. And so I didn't know anything about New York, but I had to drive them to the hospital, places I didn't know driving in New York. But it was a time of a great experience and learning. There was this one guy that kept saying like really nasty things to me about, I hope everybody's over 21. But he would be saying things like, oh, I like to put your nipple in the wine and stuff like that. I just really hated this guy. But we went out every Friday together, and one time we went somewhere. He lived in White Plains, and I had a car because, I'm not from New York. I had a car, and so he couldn't get home, and I didn't want to drive him to White Plains, and I couldn't leave him in the street, so I had to take him home with me until the train started running again, and he could catch the bus. But he had always been making advances. I was a little leery of it. And just as I'm pulling up to where I live, a black cat crosses the street, stops, and smiles at me. And I said, now, what is that about? So we go in the house, and he's a married guy, very intellectual guy. I'm very stimulated by the mind, more so than looks. And we're talking and talking. And the next thing I know, we're in the bed making love. And I swear he didn't give me a roofie. I can't blame it on drugs. I don't know how we ended up there, but we ended up in the bed. And all I can say is, verily, the devil made me do it. Because I know I wouldn't have just made that decision on my own. And we started having a very, very torrid affair. But just like when the devil shows up, 3 angels showed up at 2. At the time, I got warnings. The lady that I used to be afraid of at the deli, because when I walked in the deli, she said, can I help you? Can I help you? And she was so aggressive, I just ran out before she could help me. But eventually, I got used to her, and, even when I couldn't pay, she would make me sandwiches. But I came in with this guy, his name was Lynn, and so we were about to leave, and she said, come in. And so I went over to her, and she said, what are you doing with this guy? And I said, well, we're seeing each other. You don't need to see him. I don't want to see you with him again. Do you hear me? I don't want to see you with him again. So I said, well, I guess I won't be here again, because I wasn't thinking about giving that up. And then I went to this men's store to pick up a suit of his, and I said, I want this. I like to pick up a suit of Lynn Capers, and they were older, distinguished gentlemen, and they came over to me and said, what are you, his daughter? They knew I wasn't his daughter, But that's a New York slick way of saying the two of y'all don't belong together. I said, I'm not his daughter. He said, I know you're not his daughter, but you don't need to be with him unless you are. And the third angel that came to me at library school was my library teacher, who, even though she had on Oxfords and everything, she came and said, you didn't come to this school to just be making love with somebody, because I started missing classes and having hickeys all over my neck and everything. And all I can say is I had to make a hasty retreat from New York. I wish I could tell you the end of the story, but my time is up. But thank you.